Hi, I'm Dawn Meador. I am from Springfield, Tennessee. I was diagnosed with PH in March of 1998, so I've been living with PH for 24 years. I had a 9-month-old daughter at the time, and I had noticed I'd been having a lot of trouble breathing, and I went to Walmart one day with just me and her, and she was so small, she was still in the pumpkin seat. So I carried the pumpkin seat into Walmart, and I got into the store and thought, boy, I can't breathe. I'm really out of shape. Carrying the pumpkin seat, she doesn't weigh that much. So I got the seat set in the buggy, walked back to the dog food aisle. My heart was just racing, beating hard enough that you could kind of see my shirt moving, and I could not catch my breath. And so I knew something was wrong. And the next day, she had a baby well check at our family physician, and I questioned him about it at the time. And when I asked him about it, he looked me over and did some tests and immediately sent me to a heart specialist. And from that heart specialist, they did an echo and several other tests and discovered that it was PH. Never heard of it before, and I was basically told, hey, you're 1 in a million. So this wasn't really the lottery I wanted to win, but okay, it's the cards I was dealt. So what do we got to do to deal with it? Because at the time I had a 5-year-old son and a 9-month-old daughter, and I thought, with everything that they were all telling me about it, and then they were giving me the statistics of, back then it was life expectancy now that you've been diagnosed is only like 3 to 5 years, and I'm like, no, God's gonna let me live to see my kids grow up. I was on oral meds for the first 14 years, and then it's all of a sudden they just stopped working. So they put me on the subcutaneous pump with Remodulin, and I was on it for about a year, and then they tried me on the pill form of the Remodulin, and after about 8 or 9 months, they put me back on the pump. So I've been on the pump for almost 8 years now. I thought, well, I've made it 14 years. Is this the point that everything starts going south? The pump is inconvenient. It's painful, but my feelings on it is it's doable and it keeps me around just a little bit longer. So I'll do what I have to do to be able to spend time with my family. They did a lung biopsy to see if they could pinpoint what caused me and determined it to be idiopathic. So there was no known cause. It wasn't hereditary. It wasn't caused by the pregnancy or anything like that. It was just a fluke, that 1 in a million. For a lot of years, I kind of dealt with it on my own. And then I finally got into a support group on Facebook and got in touch with other PH patients, because at that time I thought, I'm the only one dealing with this. Nobody truly understands what I'm going through. And then I started talking to other people that do have it and realized there are more of us out there. There's not a lot of us, but there are more of us out there. And we kind of got to lean on each other because we all know what the other one's going through and nobody else really does truly understand. When we moved to Virginia, I got in with my new doctor there, and they talked me into going to one of the support group meetings. And the very first meeting I went to, it was meant for me to go that meeting because there was a young girl that was 19 years old that had just been diagnosed like a couple of weeks before I got there. And she was totally devastated. The whole meeting, she just was in tears the whole entire meeting. And something told me, go up and talk to her after the meeting was over with. So after the meeting was over, I went and talked to her and her mom, and we have stayed extremely close ever since. That's kind of what has kept me going, is if I can give somebody else support and let them know, hey, yes, it is scary when you get this news that, hey, this is what you've got. But if you go online and start reading everything that the WebMD says, it terrifies you even more. So I'm usually telling everybody, don't go read the website. Talk to somebody else that has it, because they can give you better information than what you're going to get off those websites. And when you read the websites, it's going to scare you to death. If I have the opportunity to give somebody a little bit of, hey, it's going to be okay, you're going to make it through this, it's going to be all right, then that's what I'm going to do. At the beginning, it probably brought us closer together. After a few months, the newness of me being sick wore off, and it actually we had problems to begin with, but it kind of ended the relationship, and we ended up divorced. About a year later, I met somebody else. He swore that he could handle it. We got married 9 years later after realizing that he really didn't support me in it whatsoever. Along with other issues, we got divorced. And I had kind of given up on anybody else and decided it was just going to be me and my kids, and that's all that this was going to be because nobody else could handle dealing with me being sick. And then I met my husband, which was a total fluke because at the time I had swore I was never getting married again. I was never going to date again. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was over it. I needed to take care of my health and my kids, and that's all I cared about. A friend of mine talked me into just meeting him. And on the very first date, I told him, I said, I have 2 kids. I'm in the middle of my second divorce because I have a health condition that is called pulmonary hypertension. It's a lung disease, and it will one day either require a double lung transplant or take my life. One of the two. If you can't handle this, then we're just going to call this friends and we'll go on with our dinner. And his next response was, does the illness define who you are as a person? And I was like, well, no. He said, then why should I have a problem with it? He said, you can't help that you developed this illness. So why should it cause me to not want to be around you or with you because of it? So we have been together ever since because he was kind of the blessing that I needed at the time. We have a child together. She is actually adopted. Everybody always asks me, if you've had PH for 24 years, how do you have a 10-year-old? She is adopted. And we actually finally told her last year that she was adopted, and she's completely fine with it. It was an ordeal. It terrified me, had me stressed out because I had 2 kids. He didn't have any kids, and he wanted kids. He wanted to be able to raise one as well. And my 2, by the time we met, my oldest was 17 and my youngest was 13. They were kind of pretty much grown, and we got blessed with a brand new. We were there, watched her come out and everything at the delivery, and she was handed straight to us, and she's been ours ever since and been ours from the get-go. So it's not always easy, especially with him being in the Navy, because there's a lot of times that he's not here, and he's not here for several months. You just kind of have to deal with it. It's hard because there are days that you think, okay, I can't do this. I'm sick and I feel like somebody just ran over me with a truck. But then you stand up, you smile, and you say, I got this. And you suck it up and you go on and you deal with what you got to deal with. Because none of us asked for this disease. We just developed it. And the only thing you can do is you can sit and wallow in self pity over it, or you can live life to the fullest and do what you can while you can. At the beginning of COVID, when they first started coming out talking about it and how everybody was getting sick, for like the first 3 months, my husband was bound and determined I wasn't leaving the house because he didn't want me catching anything. Because with PH, you are immunocompromised. And for a PH patient that already has issues with their lungs to develop something as such as COVID, you're pretty much in the hospital and more than likely on a vent because your lungs are already compromised, and that's the first thing an illness with with your body is going to attack is your lungs because it's the weakest point. So for the first 3 months, he pretty much was, okay, make me a list. I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to Walmart. I'm going to go do this. And everybody got to laughing at me because I would tell them, oh, I got to go for a ride. I'm starting to know what it's like to be a dog. And everybody was like, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm at home all the time, and just to get in the car and go for a car ride. I just wanted to just sit there in the car and go for a ride because it got me out of the house. So for the first few months, I was a little stir crazy. And then finally, I got him to realize, this isn't going to go away anytime soon, and I can't stay confined in a home until all this is over with because it's going to drive me insane. So I put on my masks and I was very cautious. If we went anywhere, it was in and out pretty quick. It's not quite as bad as that now. I'm cautious, but I'm not crazy. I don't go overboard like some people do, which everybody has their own way of dealing with it. My feelings are, it's not something that's ever going to actually go away. It's here. But we have to learn to live life and be cautious, but don't be stupid. But enjoy life too. Because if we sit still and wait for it to go away, you're never going to enjoy life for who knows how many more years, because who knows how many more years until it actually goes away. My advice is just have the faith and stay strong and know that whatever comes your way, how you decide to face it is going to depend on how the results come out. But for me, I'm a full believer that there is a higher power that's in control of everything. And my faith is truly the only thing that has kept me going through all of this, between the illness, COVID, anything that's ever come my way, because living with PH is not the easiest thing in the world. You have so many things thrown at you between the medical issues and the medical bills. That's a whole nother story in its own. And then the prescription costs, that's another whole nother story. It's a struggle and it's very stressful. And for a PH patient, the stress is the worst thing they can deal with, because the stress just makes the PH that much worse. So I have always just kind of put my trust and faith in him and just told myself, it's going to work out. No matter what, it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. That's how I deal with all of it. I'm Dawn Meador, and I'm aware that I'm rare.